My selfish mother abandoned me for her new family and removed me from the will for my stepbrother. Now they want help, but I dropped a bombshell instead. My mother Lisa remarried when I was 14. Her new husband Steve quickly became my stepdad. Before that, it had just been her and me for as long as I could recall. My father passed away suddenly from a heart attack when I was 7. I didn't really grasp the reality back then, just that he was there one day and gone the next. After that, my mom did her best to keep things afloat. She worked long hours as a dental office receptionist, but still managed to be home in time to cook or help with my schoolwork. We weren't rich, but we made it work. For a while, it really felt like we were a team. When Steve entered our lives, the shift was immediate. He wasn't impressive, just some guy she met through one of her co-workers. He hopped between construction gigs and always bragged about what he was supposedly working on, though I never saw him stick with anything. But my mom was head over heels. She'd say things like, "He makes me feel secure," or "He makes me laugh again." Looking back, I think she just wanted someone to rely on. I understand that now, but back then all I saw was a stranger moving into our space and acting like he belonged. Then came Tyler, Steve's 17-year-old son. Not only was he part of the deal, he was the worst part. The moment Tyler arrived, it was obvious he wasn't interested in being part of any family. He came with attitude, bad habits, and total disrespect for the fact that this house had been mine first. At first, I told myself we'd adjust, but it quickly became clear that wouldn't happen. You want to know who caused me the most trouble back then? Tyler. He was unbearable. He strutted around like he was doing us a favor just by being there. Shoes scattered in the living room, dirty dishes abandoned in the sink, trash left everywhere. Worst of all, Steve acted like Tyler could do no wrong. If something was broken or missing, I was always blamed. Tyler once used my headphones without asking, tossed them into his gym bag, and crushed them. When I told Steve, he just said, "Maybe don't leave your stuff around." I was furious. I didn't argue, but that night I packed all my important things into my backpack and took it with me everywhere. If no one respected my belongings, I'd make sure they couldn't touch them. It wasn't about the headphones, it was the principle. How could someone carelessly damage my things and look so smug about it? And why did nobody ever call him out? Worst of all, my mom would stand silently in the kitchen, watching it all unfold. I wanted her to speak up, to say anything. But all I got was that familiar blank expression. That was the theme of those years. Be the bigger person. Tyler threw loud parties whenever Steve and my mom weren't home, and I'd get scolded for not cleaning up his mess. I left everything as it was, sticky floors, empty cups, trashed furniture, and sat in the kitchen eating cereal when they returned. Steve glared at me and muttered about responsibility, but I didn't flinch. Let them clean up. Then, unexpectedly, my mom and Steve shared news. They were expecting a baby just a few months after getting married. When they made the announcement, Steve grinned like he'd already earned Father of the Year. My mom clutched his arm, glowing with joy. Meanwhile, I sat frozen, pushing food around my plate with a lump in my throat. This wasn't happiness. It was confirmation. I had no place in this new version of our family. Once the baby, Ethan, was born, things changed fast, and not in my favor. The house turned into a baby zone. My mom and Steve were constantly adjusting everything for the baby. Cribs were assembled in the living room, diapers filled the hallway, baby gear covered the kitchen counters. Then, one night after dinner, Steve made an announcement. "We're going to need to make some room for the nursery," he said, glancing at me. "It just makes sense to use the bigger bedroom." I froze. I knew exactly what that meant. They were taking my room. That weekend, Steve and my mom burst into my room with boxes and trash bags. "We'll move your things into the guest room," they said, hauling my stuff out like they were clearing out a hotel. Steve tossed around phrases like family sacrifice. But guess who wasn't doing the sacrificing? The guys stealing my room for a crib. It felt like they were robbing me. They charged in like amateur movers on a deadline, cramming my belongings into boxes and taking apart everything I had. At least real thieves wait until you're not home. I just stood in the doorway, numb, as my world shrank into a cold, bare room down the hall. I spent the rest of that day dragging my stuff into the guest room, while they transformed my old space into a baby paradise. Getting moved into the guest room felt like being sent to the penalty box. No desk, no shelves, and barely any heat. I guess I should have been thankful they didn't shove me in the garage. When I tried to set up my study materials, Steve told me not to clutter the room. It needs to stay neat. So now we had Tyler, the golden child who could do no wrong, and Ethan, the new family centerpiece. Meanwhile, I was just there. I tried to talk to my mom once, but she immediately got defensive. "This is your family now," she said. "You need to make it work." but it never worked. Steve treated me like a burden. Tyler was a daily source of stress. My mom, too caught up trying to make everyone else happy to notice my misery. By the time I was 15, I understood no one in that house had my back. My mom just wanted to keep Steve content. Steve only noticed me when he wanted to assign blame. Tyler? He lived like a prince in a house where I felt like a ghost. So I adjusted, I stopped trying to belong to their idea of family, and started just surviving each day. I wasn't rebellious or defiant, I didn't sneak out or break rules, I just made myself as invisible as possible. School became my sanctuary. I joined every club I could to stay busy. I'd hang out in the library or work on projects long after class. One day, our club advisor, Mr. Jacobs, pulled me aside. "You've got potential, Ethan," he said, tapping a pile of papers, "but don't box yourself in. Your situation doesn't define you." I never told him about home, but I guess he sensed something. His words stuck. I began dreaming of a future outside that house, one where I could finally breathe. Sometimes I just wandered the school halls, wasting time so I wouldn't have to go home. If I wasn't at school, I'd crash at my friend Jim's house. His parents were cool, and I think they knew something wasn't right, but they never pried. Home wasn't just uncomfortable, it was unbearable. Tyler made sure of that. He'd blast music at full volume, host all-night video game sessions with his friends, and hog the bathroom in the mornings. Steve? He didn't care. If anything, he encouraged it. "He's just a teen," he'd say, like that excused everything. There was one night I'll never forget. I got home around 8:30 after a long day juggling school and work. I'd taken a part-time job at a coffee shop, saving up, though I didn't know for what yet. On the kitchen counter was a note. "Went to dinner, back late, spaghetti in the fridge." That was it. My mom, Steve, Tyler, and Ethan had all gone out to eat. No one thought to invite me. I wasn't surprised, but it still stung. It was just more proof. I wasn't part of the family. After that, I gave up trying to connect. What was the point? I finally snapped when Tyler threw one of his legendary parties while my mom and Steve were away. I'd been looking forward to peace and quiet. Instead, the house became a circus. Strangers were everywhere. On the couch, in the kitchen, even in my room. When I told them to leave, some guy just laughed and said, "Relax, man. It's just a party." The next morning, my room was destroyed. Soda spilled on my desk, my backpack was ripped, and my headphones were gone. I was livid. When Tyler wandered downstairs, I confronted him. "You're cleaning this up," I said, voice trembling but firm. He laughed. "Shouldn't have left your stuff lying around," he said, brushing past me. For a second, I thought about grabbing him, but then Steve's voice thundered from the kitchen. "What's going on?" I knew how that would end, so I walked away, vowing next time I wouldn't. That was the moment I knew I couldn't live like this anymore. I began saving every cent from my part-time job. I didn't have a full plan yet, but I knew I had to get out. When I was 16, I almost left for good. I packed a bag with clothes and all the cash I had, and I made it to the bus station. But then, reality hit. I had nowhere to go. I sat there for hours watching buses come and go before dragging myself back home. No one even noticed I'd been gone. That night confirmed what I already knew. I needed a solid plan. By the time I hit 18, I'd been preparing my escape for years. Every work shift, every dollar saved, it was all about one goal: freedom. I didn't tell anyone. Not my mom, not my friends, no one. Keeping it to myself felt safer, like speaking it out loud would jinx it. I didn't just want to leave. I needed to. Every time Steve barked an order or Tyler left a mess, it was just another tick on the countdown clock. Each coffee shop shift wasn't just for the paycheck. It was a ticket out. And whenever Steve complained about me not pulling my weight, I'd silently smirk, knowing I was carrying more than my share. I stopped defending myself. I stopped trying to fit in. Every ignored insult felt like a quiet win. I was done playing their game. The timing wasn't random. Steve had been hinting that once I turned 18, he'd start charging me rent. "If you're old enough to work, you're old enough to pay," he'd say with that smug grin. No way was I giving him another excuse to control me. If I was going to pay rent, it'd be for my own place. I found a tiny apartment near campus. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. The hard part? Breaking the news. I waited until my birthday. I figured once I was legally an adult, they couldn't argue. I planned to calmly explain my decision. That evening, I walked into the living room and saw Tyler had trashed it again. Trash everywhere. As always, Steve stood there doing nothing. "You're part of this family, Ethan," he said as I cleaned up Tyler's mess. "Everyone's got to do their part." That was it. I dropped the garbage bag. "You know what? I'm done. I'm moving out." The room went silent for 2 seconds. Then Steve burst into laughter. You? Live on your own? You can't even clean a living room. He gestured at the disaster Tyler caused. You'll be back in a month begging to return. I turned to my mom, hoping, foolishly, for backup. She didn't look up from the laundry. Mom, I said, my voice shaking. You're just going to let him talk to me like this? She finally looked up. Ethan, this is a big step. Are you sure you're ready? Ready? I shouted. I've been ready. I've dealt with this crap since the day Steve and Tyler moved in. I've been your maid, your scapegoat, and your invisible roommate. And you ask if I'm ready? Her expression cracked for a moment. I thought she might apologize. Instead, she whispered, I didn't want to make things harder for anyone. I laughed bitterly. Harder for who? Steve? Tyler? Because it's been hell for me. Steve, of course, had to chime in. Oh, great. Here comes the pity party. Poor Ethan. Life's hard, kid. Get over it. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, heart pounding. Keep the house. Keep your perfect little family. I'm done. I'll make it on my own, and I'm not coming back. I didn't wait for a reply. I slammed the door, cutting off whatever Steve was yelling. For the first time in years, I felt free, even if I was furious it had come to this. My first night alone was strange. The silence felt unreal after years of constant chaos. I sat on the floor eating takeout. No table, no furniture, wondering if I'd made a mistake. But deep down, I knew this was right. I needed space, a break from being blamed or ignored. Over the next few weeks, I built a routine. No one blamed me for anything. No one stole my things. No one screamed at me. It was peaceful, and I didn't realize how much I'd missed that. I didn't completely cut off my mom, but I kept my distance. We texted sometimes. She called a few times, but the conversations stayed surface level. She never asked about my new apartment. I didn't offer details. Steve and Tyler? Total silence, which was just fine with me. One night, my mom called late. I thought something was wrong. She sounded off, like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. Finally, she said, Ethan misses you. He keeps asking where you are. I didn't know what to say. I missed Ethan too. He was just a kid. But I couldn't go back, not even for him. Tell him I miss him, I said. That was it. End of conversation. Leaving was the best decision I'd ever made. It didn't fix everything overnight, but it gave me the room to figure out who I was outside of that toxic house. Life slowly got better, until something unexpected happened. One evening, my mom called again, with news. Steve's updating his will, she said like it was nothing. He wants everything to go to Tyler and Ethan. It's just simpler that way. I didn't respond right away. I waited. Then she added, It doesn't change how we feel about you, it's just paperwork. But it did change things. It confirmed everything I already knew. Even after all this time, I still wasn't part of the family. It wasn't about money. It was about what it represented. I forced my voice to stay calm. I understand, I said. She hesitated. This doesn't mean anything, Ethan. But it meant everything. I didn't argue. I let the conversation drift into neutral topics until we hung up. But the damage was already done. That call stayed with me for days, a reminder of exactly where I stood in their world. After that, I stopped answering her calls for a while. It wasn't out of spite. I just couldn't handle it anymore. Instead, I focused on what I could control: work, school, my life. I picked up extra shifts. I joined a study group to stay ahead in classes. Living on my own was hard, but it was honest. If something broke, I fixed it. If the bills piled up, I worked longer hours. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. That meant more than anything Steve could have ever left me in a will. Time passed. I started feeling like I had real stability, until something wild happened. I got a letter from a law firm. At first, I thought it was a scam. The name on the envelope wasn't familiar, and it's not like I had any business with lawyers, but I opened it and read something I never expected. My great-aunt Megan, someone I'd barely known, had passed away. She'd named me her sole heir. I didn't even realize she was still alive, let alone that I was in her will. The letter said to contact the lawyer handling her estate for more details. I didn't rush to call. I figured it was probably a sentimental keepsake, maybe some old photo albums or trinkets. But the truth? I was scared. Scared of what it might mean. Scared it would force me to confront everything I'd tried to leave behind. Eventually, another letter came, this time marked urgent. That's when I finally called. I half expected to be told it was all a mistake. Instead, I found out that Megan had left me everything: a house, some property, and a trust fund worth millions. I nearly dropped the phone. Millions? It didn't seem real. The lawyer asked if I could come in to sign paperwork and go over the estate. I booked the earliest appointment I could, still half expecting it to be some kind of error. The lawyer, a direct and professional woman named Ms. Halper, laid everything out. Megan had been extremely wealthy: real estate, smart investments, multiple properties. She'd never married or had children, but she'd admired self-reliant people. "She mentioned you by name in the will," Ms. Halper said, handing me a letter. "She believed you deserved a real chance." The letter was short, but it hit hard. Megan wrote about how she'd quietly seen how determined I was. She admired how I kept going, even with everything stacked against me. She said I deserved a clean slate, free from the weight of my past. I was speechless. I'd gone from scraping by on part-time wages to holding the key to a future I'd never even imagined. And the person who believed in me most was someone who barely knew me. I signed the paperwork. Just like that, I had access to the trust fund and inherited Megan's house. It was in a peaceful neighborhood, a couple of hours from where I'd been living. I moved in right away, but word spreads fast, especially in families. Within a week, my mom called. No hello, no pleasantries. "I heard about Megan," she snapped. "Why didn't you tell me?" I kept my voice even. "I didn't think it mattered to you." "Well, it does," she shot back. "Steve and I are drowning in bills. Ethan needs school supplies. You have more than enough to help." I was stunned. Barely 2 minutes into the call, and she was already asking for money. "Mom, I haven't even figured out what I'm doing with all this yet," I said. "There's nothing to figure out," she insisted. "Just help your family. It's the right thing to do." I said I'd think about it, but I already knew my answer. There was no way I was handing money over to people who had ignored me for years. Then came more calls. First, my mom begged, going on about family responsibilities. Then Steve called, acting like we'd always been close. He rambled about how family sticks together and how I was in a position to give back. Even Tyler sent texts, claiming he was trying to get his life together and just needed a little help. The final straw? Steve showed up, at my door, uninvited, holding Ethan's hand. Ethan looked confused. He didn't even seem to know why he was there. "Can we talk?" Steve said, stepping inside before I could respond. I didn't move, arms crossed, guard up. "What do you want?" He launched into some speech about how hard things had been, how I could help. "We're not asking for much," he smiled. "Just enough to get by." I cut him off. "You've got a lot of nerve showing up here. Where was all this family concern when I was stuck in a freezing guest room and blamed for everything?" Steve's smile disappeared. "That was a long time ago. This is about moving forward." "No," I said coldly. "This is about you trying to use me." "I'm not giving you anything. Get out." He started to protest. I threatened to call the police. That got him moving. After that, I knew I had to go further. Cutting them off wasn't enough. They kept finding ways back in. I went to my lawyer. We filed a no-contact order against Steve for harassment. I changed my number. I removed my address from public records with a privacy service. I blocked every number and social media account tied to them. My mom tried to work around it. She used different email addresses, sent guilt-tripping messages, told friends to contact me. One even reached out to my best friend, Jamie. He shut her down. "If he doesn't want to talk to you, that's his choice," he told her, and blocked her too. Eventually, she sent a handwritten letter. No idea how she got my new address. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. It was everything I expected. Guilt, manipulation, demands. She wrote about their hardships, Ethan's struggles, and accused me of being selfish. She ended with, "You'll regret this one day when we're gone." That line set me off. They had ignored me, blamed me, pushed me aside, and now she had the nerve to say I'd regret cutting them out. I shredded the letter and called my lawyer. We sent a formal cease and desist. If they reached out again, I'd take legal action. After that, there was silence. Finally. No calls, no letters, no random visits. For the first time in years, I felt safe. I could live without always looking over my shoulder. It wasn't easy, especially cutting ties with my mom. Sometimes I'd wonder, was I too harsh? But then I'd remember the years of being overlooked and mistreated. The tiny freezing room, the trashed belongings, the silent complicity. I reminded myself, cutting ties wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. They'd shown me who they were. I wasn't waiting around for them to change. The only one I even considered reconnecting with was Ethan. He once sent a short note, apologizing for asking for money, saying he missed me. It felt real. I don't think he was part of the manipulation, but reconnecting with him would mean letting the rest of them in. I'm not ready for that. Maybe one day when Ethan's older, he can reach out on his own terms. Maybe then we'll talk. For now, the door stays shut. These days, I don't think about them much. I've built a life I'm proud of, a steady job, real friendships. Peace. Cutting them off was painful, but it saved me. Walking away wasn't weakness. It was growth. I spent years in survival mode. Now, I finally get to live. My life, my rules. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up for you. And if they couldn't be those people, then I'd find ones who would. If you enjoyed this story and felt the emotions behind it, don't forget to give it a like, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life experiences and heartfelt stories. Your support means the world, and it helps us bring more content like this to you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.